everyone. Welcome to Girls Guide to God. My name is Alexa, and I'm the host of this podcast. Well, this is a faith based podcast. I hope that the content can be received by anybody. So today I have two guests. Hi, guys. My name is Lindsay.
And I'm Jack.
Yeah, thanks so much for being on this, guys.
Of course.
So this is going to be a part two of the previous episode we did, which was with Colin and Sam, and it was how to be a teenager and a follower of Jesus at the same time. So we're going to kind of touch over similar topics, but go over some different ones as well. So I feel like you both are very good at incorporating your faith into your daily life. Some questions I'm gonna ask both of you. Some questions I'm just gonna ask to one of you, but this one's for both of you. So how do you guys incorporate your faith into your routine? Anything specifically?
For me, it's always been about daily prayer. I wake up every morning and I try to pray. It might just be 5 minutes, it might just be 1 minute, depending on how much of a rush I'm in. But I feel like centering myself with God in the morning, like just saying thanks, like thanks for the morning, thanks that I woke up this today, and then same thing at night. It's like thank you for this great day, thank you for all the interactions I had, and recentering myself before I go to bed.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think other than prayer, I really like to listen to worship music. Music is like a huge part of my life. And I think serving on the worship team for Mellow Church has also like helped a lot. And I think whenever I play worship music or just listen to music, I really feel his presence and it helped me like stay strong in my faith on a daily basis.
Okay, I'm going to ask you guys about reading the Bible. I feel like it's so much easier to not read it than to read it because it's like, where do I even start? How do I even read it? Once you're finished with the book, where do I go next? How do you guys like fit that into your busy schedules?
Um, I like to I know the Bible app on everybody's phones. It has the verse of the day. And that's usually where I like to start. I just reading one simple verse a day. Like sometimes they don't have time to read a full chapter or full book. But making sure that I read that verse of the day every day, I feel like is a great starting point because I don't know what their program or whatever it is behind it, but almost every morning when I wake up and I check it, I'm like, wow, this really applies to me. Or like, how do they know that I needed this like confirmation in my life? And then sometimes I will often lead to um, reading that whole chapter, if I have the time, and just reading through that chapter of the book, really getting that verse in context as well, which is important. Um, and sometimes that's all you need. That's the starting point. And of course, Romans, it's a great book to start with. That's how I started reading the Bible, was with Romans, and going from there.
Yeah, for me, I've always wanted to consistently read the Bible, but I felt like that was one of my struggles as a follower of Christ, consistently reading was my devotions. But to kind of find a solution to that in college, I joined a Bible study. And my group would meet every Tuesdays in the library, and we would just read one chapter a week, but we would break down every single verse from that chapter. And we've gone through Ruth and Jonah. And I think these Bible studies have really, really increased my knowledge of the significance of both of the stories and why it's in the Bible. I feel like um, not only was I able to grow closer to these people that I have done these Bible studies with, I've also increased my understanding of the Bible. And I think joining a Bible study is one of my biggest recommendations if you want to further your faith even more in college.
Cool. Okay. So that was kind of quick, but we're going to go to the next topic. We kind of talked about this with Colin and Sam, but something that you guys have different from them is that you just finished applying to colleges and you just finished to start a college. And I feel like something that's like every single teenager right now is worrying about is their future. Like, are they going to get into college? Are they doing enough? Jack, can you tell us a little bit more about the process of applying to college and how like God and faith was kind of involved in that?
Yeah. For applying to college, it's just a whole scary process. There's so much going on. There's so many options. You don't know what's the right fit for you. And it's pressuring to apply to a big name school or apply to a lot of schools because that's what everybody else is doing. But for me, it was knowing that God had a plan no matter what. No matter where I went, I knew that God's plan for me was going to stay consistent, whether I went to a big name school or whether I went to community college for a couple of years. I knew that in the end, my plan and my journey would always be set. And it kind of gave me some peace of mind knowing that in the end, everything was going to be okay.
Okay, and would you say you kind of had something that you wanted, or were you just like, God, like my plan is yours?
I mean, there was definitely some things I've wanted for a long time. My sister goes to Purdue, so I was very excited to apply there, and I definitely spent a lot of my time like working on that specific application. Um, and there were tons of schools that I would have loved to get into, big name schools that I know would have led me to great careers. But I think it was a little more of a fallback when I was scared or worried that something bad might happen or that I might not get into any school, but I knew that in the end, God would eventually bring me along my journey.
Okay, Lindsay, and you're on the other side of that. Can you also tell us a bit about the process and how your faith was involved in the whole thing?
Yeah. This was like a year ago, more than a year ago. But yeah, I remember being really stressed out about where I'm going with friends. We're already receiving acceptances and I was on the wait list for schools that I actually wanted to attend. So it was definitely a little bit stressful. But what my mom always told me was basically what Jack was saying, how God does have a plan and wherever you end up is exactly where you are meant to be. And at first I was actually committed to Boston, but with a different kind of offer where I go after years. And at first, like I didn't want to wait for a year, and I was just really frustrated because all my other options were not as promising. But then when I received my um admission letter from UC Irvine, I was waitlisted. And my mom actually, on that same day, she told me that she had faith that I would get off. And honestly, I was just really I was a little frustrated already. So I didn't have that mindset, but I believe what my mom said. And they did take me off like 2 months later. And honestly, though, when I got off, I wasn't ready to switch because I was already so set on what I thought my plan would be. But then, one, random day, I was researching, UCI's, school campus and, majors, and I saw a picture of UCI's logo, and on the logo, it said, "Let there be light," and I'm pretty sure that logo is the same across all UCs. I just never noticed until, then, and that kind of, sparked, a sign from God because, "Let there be light," it's written in the Bible, and I think, um that same week, I also had a gathering with my relatives. My second cousin actually went to UCI. He graduated, I think 2 years ago. And that same week, we had a gathering, and I don't see him very often. So that same week I got off the wait list, I got to see him, and he totally convinced me. And now, I think UCI is a beat place. I'm so happy I can make it here. And I think it really does fall into place, God's plan. And you see it, you might not see it now, but you will see it in the future.
Okay, so you feel like that whole week and like that, the light, that was like God telling me.
Yes, because I only had 1 week to decide. And that was a very stressful week for me.
Okay, interesting. What would you two say? Like, what was one piece of advice you would give to people who are applying, or maybe they're like sophomores, freshmen, juniors, they're about to apply?
For me, I would say you really can't control what your admissions officer is thinking about you. And honestly, after you submit your application, everything else is in God's hands. So I think this unnecessary stress is really, or the stress, it's valid. But if you think about how in the end, everything will be okay and everything will be what God wants for you, I think that's a really good mindset to have. And that eventually you will see why you felt that way and you will see um what was supposed to happen in the end. So I think just not stressing about it when you can't do anything about it is really important. And just talk to God if you really feel that there's no hope because there always is and God's got you.
Yeah, for me, it was always about picking which colleges to apply to. Because my major was never set out. I never knew what I wanted to do particularly, so I kind of was just saying, "Hey, what are the what are the good schools to go to? What would have been influencing me through social media or like online? What schools have I seen a bunch? And talking to my friends, of course, too, of like what schools they were applying to. But what brought it all back and what actually helped me like write down that list of colleges that I wanted to go to was talking a bunch to my school's counselor, and just praying about it, was just asking, hey, is this the right choice? Is it worth the time and effort to go and apply to this school that I might not even get into? And so with the application process being so much as people assume to be destiny or fate, it's like in the end it is in God's hands. You can't control what happens, what schools you get into. You can just try your hardest and hope that everything goes your way. And so just when you look at schools, or when you look at potential colleges that you might apply to, just go with it in the way of, I'm just going to try my hardest for whatever school I want to go to, and whatever school I end up at, I'm going to make that place my home, because that's what's ultimately going to happen.
Okay, so we're gonna go in the next topic, which is community. So I've actually attended your guys' campus for a bit, and I feel like maybe you guys don't know this because like you've always been there, but I feel like you guys have such a close community, which is really like unique to your high school ministry, Jack, because you're so like in the high school ministry. Could you tell us like a little bit more about not just life groups, but the general relationships there?
Yeah, I feel like, as you mentioned, like the strong community at Mountain View, I feel like one thing that's built that is, surprisingly, the fact that we haven't had a student leader or
Youth pastor.
youth pastor, yeah, at our campus. I think that's actually brought us closer together, because with the help of people like Daniel and Shelley, who have kind of led our youth ministry, we've been able to kind of be with each other to become our own youth ministers and talk to each other about what we've been feeling, or what we want our youth ministry to be. And I feel like that's brought our community a lot closer together. And of course, older grades like Lindsay's, I feel like the mentorship of them going through and being friendly and showing the example of reaching out to like freshmen or sophomores or underclassmen who it's maybe their first time showing up, and instantly inviting them to sit with them, play a game, eat dinner, and making that community bridge between the younger grades and older grades, where often you can see a divide. But really bridging that together, just starting with seniors, bring back freshmen and sophomores. That leads to the juniors also wanting to do that, and it just leads to a much tighter community where everybody knows each other better and really wants to support each other.
Wow. Okay. So I'm gonna ask both of you this. Could you guys tell us a little bit more about your life groups and like what that is, like with the people in your grade and
Yeah. Well, my life group used to be bigger in the beginning, but after COVID, people stopped coming as much, which was a little sad. But the people that did consistently came, and I think that's what made our life group so close. And our leader has actually been here for a really long time. Shelly was actually our leader. She now has a new life group, which is really, really nice. But she was such a good life group leader. She always invited us to her house, and she always took initiative to plan things with us so we would bond and create more life memories and come closer, which I think was super important. And, I really felt safe telling her things, and she felt like a really good mentor to me. So I would come every week, especially during, like, life group discussions. I really needed that time to just talk about my week and, things I was going through. So I think that made our life group really strong. And, yeah, I think the best thing about life groups really is how vulnerable you can be with each other, and the no judgment zone where everyone just supports and prays for one another. And I think that's like the best part about one of the best parts about coming to Menlo every week, especially in this stage of our lives.
Yeah. And I would say, like, for me, our life group wasn't always um, so faith focused. I know as we've gotten older, our life group has definitely developed more from a very rowdy group that we were in sixth and seventh grade, to a much more like calm and faith focused group. I remember sixth, seventh grade, we would set aside 15 minutes at the beginning of every like life group period, and we would just have chaos. there were pool noodles in our room, and I vividly remember getting into many sword fights. Um, but of course, that evolving into over COVID and being apart for so long, um, I feel like we stayed in touch over that time, texting, hanging out, arranging things outside of the regular Sunday meetings. That was a big part of evolving our life group, um, and making it stronger. And now in our senior year, almost all the guys who were there in middle school have stayed together. We're all still hanging out. All of us, a lot of them actually have been wanting to get together over winter break and second semester, hang out, have fun. Um, and then just that constant support from our life group leaders, I know, has always been there. It's just really supported us. They always know what we might need in the given week, and especially that Sunday weekly checkup that we have. It's uh, really important to see how some issues have progressed. I know that like when I was struggling, a weekly like question like, "Oh, how are you doing this week?" It was really uplifting knowing that somebody was there, and I feel like that was God working through my life group leaders, reaching me, reaching to my fellow life group members, and like just that bond where we were all reaching out to each other, um, really created like a great group dynamic that I'm really happy to be a part of.
Okay, so like how to be a follower of Jesus and a teenager at the same time. You guys both really mentioned mentors, and you guys feel like that's like a really crucial part of, being a follower of Jesus.
Yeah, I would say so. It really adds to my victory.
I feel like a lot of people I would say um, that I would want to be when I grow up are the people who have, led me through faith and through God, and who have mentored me through that journey.
Okay, Lindsay, now I'm gonna ask you, what is it like as a Christian in college? Like, have you been able to find a Christian community? And like, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, oh my goodness. So going into college, I definitely knew that I wanted to be in a fellowship. I had friends from Menlo actually that are older than me, and I knew which groups they were part of. So those were the groups that I checked out first. But on the way, my roommates, almost all my roommates, I live in a quad, but almost all my roommates are Christian. And finding roommates, I wanted to find people that were also in the faith journey as well. And yeah, I was lucky enough to have two really devoted Christian, sorry, two really devoted Christian friends, and one of them actually introduced this fellowship called AACF, which stands for Asian American Christian Fellowship, to me, and I decided to go with her during Zeke Zero for one of our welcome events, and I loved it because the upperclassmen were so sweet, and they were super, super welcoming, so I stayed. And then the original fellowship that I wanted to be a part of is called RUF, and that stands for Reformed University Fellowship, and I'm also part of that. And I fellowship hopped. I went to literally almost, I said not all of them, but a lot of fellowships. And it was really hard to decide which ones to stay in, but ultimately I decided to stay in double A and UF. And so yeah, I am in two right now. But both of these fellowships have been super, super, super fun. And I feel like the people there, they're genuinely there for God, and they decide to come every week. It's their choice. It's no one's forcing them to go. And everyone is very, very faithful. And they all have such positive mindsets. And I see Jesus in a lot of my Christian friends, which is honestly just so amazing to me because in high school, I didn't have as many Christian friends. I barely had any, actually. Most of them were from church. So I think going to college and being able to experience this kind of fellowship with so many different people is just so special. And it's one of my favorite things about college.
Wow. Okay. So we're gonna move on to the next topic, which is kind of similar to community, but it's sharing faith with maybe other friends that aren't Christian. Jack, I'm gonna ask you first. I know you play a lot of sports,
Yeah.
so a lot of community around there. Do you choose to share your faith with your friends, and like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think faith can be a really like touchy topic when you talk about it with friends. A lot of times, with people who are not Christians, it's hard to bring up faith into a conversation naturally. Um, but I know, like for me, going through sports, going to a Catholic high school, we do a prayer before every single match for any of my sports, and a lot of the guys are on the team aren't Christian. But what it's a nice it's that recentering time of prayer that I really enjoy, and it opens up the conversation to being thankful to God for the abilities that we were given. A lot of times with my sports friends, I like to talk about being thankful for what God has given us, whether it be wins or losses or the community experience. And I've invited some of them to church every Sunday, and some of them end up going, and of course, some of them don't. But at the same time, it's like I know that they've had that exposure now, and I hope that that leads them to future journeys with God on their own.
Have you guys ever had like a situation in school that kind of contradicts with your faith? I know with Colin, I was talking about like an English class, and people were like, "If God is real, why do bad things happen?" Or like evolution. Have you guys ever like had that come up?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times with the doubts that come up, um, I feel like it definitely varies a lot from situation to situation. Like touching on the why do bad things happen, or like a big thing is a question is why does God let good people suffer? Um, and I think that a lot of times people see it as God's not all loving, God's not all perfect if He's letting these bad things happen. But for me, it's like God gave us all free will to do the choices that we want. But in the end, all those choices lead back to one path, and that one path of following Him, as long as we choose to believe that Christ came and died for our sins. Um, but sometimes the only way that we can learn are through experience. I would say that some of my greatest lessons, or the things that have shaped me the most, have actually been hardship times. Going through pain, going through suffering has helped lead me to find like who are my closest friends, who actually supported me during that time, and what I actually value over maybe some face value thing like how many parties I went to, but in reality it was like, well, how many people do I actually talk to outside of those parties? And going through times of struggle definitely taught me to value those people more than the everyday person that might not actually be in my best interest for. And so going through those struggles, I feel like is God's way of teaching me how to be the best version of me that I can.
Okay, last question. What would you guys, if you had one, have to give one piece of advice to high schoolers and like how to be a teenager at the same time as being a follower of Jesus, what would you guys say?
It's hard. I feel like there's so much stress and busyness of being a high schooler, having to get work done, and then also planning for your future at the same time. It's a very much middle ground where it's like I still have to focus on the present and what I'm doing now, but also focus on the future just as much. And that's throughout high school and college. And so one thing that I like to think about a lot is it's this meme that I saw. It was like Jesus slept during the middle of a giant storm on the sea. So you will always have time to take a nap. And so I've always thought about it as maybe not exactly taking a nap, but sometimes like just taking a pause in your day. If you're overloaded with homework and you think that I'm not even gonna get it done tonight, I have no time to eat dinner or anything, taking 10 minutes to just sit by yourself, no work, just stare at a blank wall or something and just be alone with your thoughts. It can be dangerous and it can be scary at first for sure, but just taking that time of self-rest and self-care.
That's so true. I think as much as people say this, everything really will be okay in the end. And I feel like for me, I in high school, I stressed a little too much about things that I probably didn't need to stress as much about because in like in a year or something, you won't even remember. But I think my biggest piece of advice is really to just trust God's plan and everything will fall into place. And it's about your mindset and how you carry yourself through the day that makes a huge difference because if you don't have a very positive mindset about, oh, I'm going to college, oh, I'm screwed, I'm never going to college because I got a B on a test or something like that will only cause you to feel that way. But if you like change your mindset and be like, oh, I'll do better on my next test and keeping this grade up, I think that own encouragement that you give to yourselves is so important, especially during times of just like call it that. So yeah, trust in God's plan and everything will fall into place.
I love that. Thanks so much, guys, for being on the podcast. Cool.
Thank you so much for inviting me.